Recording this session. So I've got the recording turned on. And again, I will send the recording to everyone after the session. So when you first log into KidReports, and generally speaking, you can't log in until you've been onboarded. If you're a Procare customer, you need to be onboarded into KidReports. And then once you're onboarded, the administrator who is on record on the account will receive an email address, an email with the email address on record that has all of the user logins, your teachers and yourself as an administrator. So that'll be auto-generated once you've gone through the onboarding process. Then you will go to KidReports.com. Just go to a Google Chrome browser and go to KidReports.com, tap login, click login, and put in your username and the temporary password, and that'll get you logged in, and it'll be a page that looks something like this. So this is the home tab, and what I'm going to do today is take you through these gray buttons here on the left, the blue buttons here we also call the daily use buttons, and there's a few links at the top. I'm not going to go through every setting in the account because that would take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But I'm going to hit the main things, the most important things. Beginning with this home page, you'll see a big red button that says send welcome email to 68 new family members. If you click this button, it'll send the welcome email, which contains usernames and passwords, temporary passwords for the family members to get logged in, so the parents in your account. There's also the Launch Help Center button. This is where you can go to get FAQ pages and training materials. So there are pre-recorded videos available here. There's also a teacher training manual. It's a PDF you can share with your teachers. There's also a quick start setup for the administrative portal. This is a very quick video, 8 minutes, and I take you through the absolute core settings just to get you started. Otherwise, you can watch training videos for both director and teacher at this link. And there's also a new document I created called Creating Quick Links in the Teacher Application. And I'll just say that that's for creating a link to content outside of KidReports if you want to do that. So that is the Launch Help Center, and then go to Training Materials. So we're going to begin by going first to settings, and I need to change something, otherwise it's going to be a little confusing for you. I'm going to change my login, and by the way, this is what the login page looks like. And just put in your password and then sign in. So there we are. I'm going to go to settings and then facility. The facility page shows your physical location, the name of your center here at the top. A little bit further down, some important things to confirm. Make sure you have the correct time zone. I'm in Colorado, so I've got Denver selected as my time zone. Also, immediately below that, of importance to you might be the state standard framework. So last year, we input 43 states for state standards. So we took the exact format of those states, and they appear here. You can select your state as long as it appears. So you can see I've selected Colorado for mine. Again, I'm not going to go through every setting at this time, but do let us know through the support email address, support@kidreports.com, if you do have any questions, and we'll be happy to answer anything about any of these settings. Immediately below a logo, which you can upload. And by the way, I'd recommend not anything too large. You can see mine is approximately 60 by 60, just roughly. But immediately below that is really the next important thing. What time would you like daily reports to be sent automatically? So the daily report is a summary report of all activities recorded in the classroom by your teachers. That would be like bottle feedings, diaper changes, meals, activities that the children participated in, that sort of thing. This is the automated time of day that I've selected, 6:30 p.m. You select the hour, and then you'll be prompted to select a quarter hour if you wish. I've also checked the box that says to send the daily report when the child is signed out. So it happens whichever comes first, if it's the time of day or if the child is signed out, because there may be times when the child, for some reason, is not signed out for the day, so it'll send at the automated time. So we do recommend setting both of those. Who can delete events? That would be the event in the classroom, like a diaper change, bottle feeding, anything like that. If you say all teachers can delete events regardless of individual settings, then it doesn't matter, that anybody can do it. If you do say only if it's enabled individually, that means that you want to have some control over which teachers can delete events. And maybe you would do that if you know that you're going to have new teachers coming in occasionally. You might set it up that way, and then you approve them as you review their work. Otherwise, you could say only the administrator can delete events. Might put a lot of extra work on you, but then you'd at least have an idea of how your teachers are doing with recording activities in the teacher application. The next key setting, can parents send messages directly to teachers? That is typically checked. So what that does, the teachers will receive an email sent to their classroom. So anyone assigned, for example, to Infant Room 1 will receive a message from a parent as long as that parent has a child assigned to Infant Room 1. The parent cannot select individual teachers. Just want to clarify that. It'll just go to all the teachers assigned to that room. You can disable teacher messaging. I typically do not see that selected, at least less than half the time is when it is selected. We're going to jump down a little bit further though, to where it says name to face frequency in minutes. Name to face is a tracking sheet that is required by some states. It ensures that teachers are checking on those kiddos at set time intervals throughout the day, ensuring children are safely in their care. The default setting is every 30 minutes. You can go as little as every 5 minutes to as long as every 60 minutes. Just depends on your state if you need it. You can disable teacher accounts after business hours and over the weekend, and then you would set the disable time and the re-enable time here. I see this in use approximately half the time. A little bit further down, the next really important setting is tracking sheet / name to face. So this is for visibility in the teacher application. So even though you can use the tracking sheet, you don't have to. You can disable the tracking sheet, or you can show only the name to face. You can also define a separate tracking sheet like I did here, the SIDS Safe Sleep Tracker. This is for my infant rooms, so the teachers can record the child's sleep position. So if I want to have both of those, I'm going to say show name to face and tracking sheet, and then it's visible to the teachers in the classroom. I could still say only show me name to face or only show me the tracking sheet, because maybe I don't want to use the name to face, or maybe I don't need either of them and I'm going to disable both. So that's a nice feature, and these all work together. So you give the heading here where it says headers for the tracking sheet, and then subheadings. So that's how you would create an additional tracking sheet. Final thing I'd like to show you here, show arrival message option for parents. We're finding this to be very useful with this COVID situation. What this does is turns on a button in the parent application. All the parent has to do is tap that button for their child, and it'll send a message to the teachers in that room telling them that they're about 10 minutes away from picking up their child. It might help you to avoid crowds at the door to pick up a child. So we are finding this to be very useful for parents and for centers during this time with COVID-19. So those are some key settings. Like I said, there are other settings here. If you have questions about any of these, I'll be happy to answer them. You can also write to us at support@kidreports.com and ask the question there. And for those of you who joined a little bit late, you can submit questions using the chat feature, or you can go to the Q&A feature, both found in the webinar console, the Zoom webinar console, and you can submit your questions that way. So we're going to move on now. Again, we're going to be on settings, but we're going to go next to administrators. So KidReports and Procare, they do synchronize. The synchronization is one way, Procare to KidReports, and it is currently only one way. One of the things that synchronizes over is the person who is set up as the school director in Procare. That is the only person who will synchronize over as an administrator. Otherwise, you can create as many administrators in KidReports as you wish by using the Add Administrator button. The other things that synchronize are rooms, teachers, family members, and children. And I'm going to go over all of those for you. So here we have one administrator who synchronized over, and that's Mrs. Jones. So if I open Mrs. Jones' profile, this is typically what you'll see: first and last name, email address, which is required for administrators, and password. You can never read a password for anyone in KidReports, just so you know that. However, as an administrator, you can reset the password for anyone. So you really don't need to see what the current password is. You can just reset it to whatever they think it is or whatever you think it should be. So don't worry about ever trying to figure out a password. Just reset it if you're not sure. You can also see the username. And at the very bottom, it says for approval items and assessments. So these are for notifications. So if you want to get a notification email every time you have something, you can do that, but I would recommend beginning with only notify me once an hour. Because if you do begin getting a lot of notifications, it may just overwhelm your email, and then you'll have a lot of cleanup to do. So I'd begin by starting with only notify me once an hour, and you may end up putting in never notify me and then just put a reminder in your calendar like Outlook, and just make sure you go and check for approvals that may be needed throughout the day. And I'll get to those approvals shortly. So that's what an administrator profile looks like. Again, it requires an email address. Email addresses also serve as usernames, and it is required for both administrators and family members. So we're going to move on from settings. We're going to go first to age categories. Now, this is the first of three things that kind of work together. So if you take nothing else away from this training, remember this: age categories do not synchronize from Procare. That's important enough to repeat. Age categories do not synchronize from Procare. You must set them up directly in KidReports. What you'll see in KidReports is infant, pre-K, preschool, school age, and toddler age categories. Notice that I have more than that. I've split my infant age categories into two. I've got 0 to 12 and 12 plus. So the first thing you must do is define your age categories. Do not confuse these with your rooms. So infants, in most states, the infant room ratio is 4:1. Notice that I changed the name from just infants to 0 to 12. So if you don't use infants in your center for whatever reason, you can just rename this. So you don't have to add a new one, you can just rename it. But what's really important is that you set the room ratio. You'll see how that comes into play later, but there are also some background functions that key off of the room ratio. So it's really important that you set this, at least for the age categories that you're using. So I'm going to enter 4 for just the number of infants to one teacher. And that is the recommendation. Even if you never have fewer than 2 teachers in a room, I recommend setting the ratio as though it was 1 teacher. So I have 4 infants to 1 teacher, and I'm going to save that. So that's the very first thing. And if you want to add a new age category, if you have different ways of defining things, like instead of pre-K, maybe you define them as 2s or 2s and 3s, or however you might want to do that. You can just click add a new age category and you can define it here. So after you've done that, the next step, part 2, is to go to rooms. So settings and then rooms. Rooms will synchronize from Procare. But when you first come onto this page, you'll see the age category appearing is infant for every room. And that's again because the age category does not sync. So you need to align the age category to the room. To do that, after you've defined your age categories, click on the room here, and now you can select the age category from a drop-down menu. So this is part 2. Part 1, define the age category. Part 2, align the age category to the room. And you can see I've done it for all of mine. I won't belabor that any further because part 3 is coming, which is activities. So we're jumping from settings to activities. So this is the third part, and it might become apparent now, but you can see this page is organized by age category. So just as an example, if you are a large center and you have 20 or 30 rooms, or you're just a regular school, you have 20 or 30 rooms, it's a lot easier to manage the activities by age category rather than by room, because you may have 4 infant rooms or 4 school age rooms or 2 or 3 toddler rooms, however it may work out. So it's a little bit easier to manage this page by the age category. So once you've aligned all of those things, then everything will appear correctly. So now on this page, there are 4 basic things you can do. First thing is you can make something visible or not visible by checking the box. So if you look in my bottle feeding activity under meals, notice my infant 12 plus doesn't have bottle feeding visible. By checking the box and saving it by clicking Apply Changes to Activities at the upper right, the blue button, I make that visible to the teachers in my classrooms. If you uncheck it, remove the check mark from the box, you're removing it from visibility, so they can't see that as an activity. So that's the first thing you can do. Second thing you can do is add a completely new activity. So let's say under daily routine, I want to add a new activity. I can click the plus add link here on any activity and I can add one. I'm going to add outdoor explore and I'm adding it to daily routine. But notice I could select any category, but this one is for daily routine. So now that I've added outdoor explorer, you can see there's nothing selected for it. It's not visible because there's nothing created for it yet. It's completely blank. So then what I would do is go in here and I would edit this activity to add a lot of details. I think it's a little more meaningful to see the third thing you can do, which is customize existing activities. It's the same as adding the details for a new activity. So I'm going to go to meal for pre-K. And you can see when I mouse over the cell, I get a pencil icon and a paper icon. I'm going to show you the pencil first. So now I can customize this activity, and this is a meal for pre-K. So you can see these are the meal items that have currently been defined. So you can see I've got a Big Mac here. If Big Mac doesn't belong for the pre-K, I can remove that. And I can add something else. New food item, just so you can see where it ends up. So I've added new food item, and now it appears here. Let's say I want to add a new heading. So you can see I have special diets. If I go to the very bottom here, where it says add more activity details, I can have a new heading here. So I've added a new heading and it defaults to the top. Now I can add details to that, whatever that food item might be or whatever it is. I'm just going to say detail 1 and detail 2. So you can add new headings, and in this case it might be a new food heading of some kind. And now I can change the order in which it appears for the teachers. If I use the single arrow, I can move it down 1, or I can move it all the way to the bottom with the second arrow. And you can see now my new heading appears at the bottom. If you want to delete something, you can. You can delete the entire heading. So if I just go to delete, it'll ask me to confirm. I click OK, and that new heading is now gone. So that's how you can add new headings like drinks, other details that you want to add. New food items, you just keep adding them under the food category where it says add another food to the list. And when you're done, you have to click save again. There's a save button at the upper right and at the bottom right. Click either of those. So that is saved now for my pre-K meal. Now, if I want to copy that to another age category, I just click on the double paper icon. And let's say I want to copy it to infant 0 to 12, but I could do it to all categories if I wanted to. And now I'm going to click OK, and that's going to copy to the meal item for infants. And when I open this up, new food item appears. Now I do want you to note, it will not delete things when you copy. It'll just add to existing. So you can see there were existing food items for infants that didn't appear for pre-K. So that is how you customize activities. So that was the third thing you can do. The final thing you can do is set up approvals. And this is kind of important. The way it works right now, for my meal category, if you look at the padlocks here, when you mouse over it, it'll tell you what the current approval setting is. So it says no review. So if I record a meal activity in any of my rooms, parents will be able to see that immediately in the parent application. So that's perfectly fine if that's the way you want to set it up. But you do have some other settings if you want to have a little bit more control over when things are viewed. So if I want to change everything for this category to a different setting, I go here where it says change all security settings. I'm going to say administrator must approve photo and video only for meals. And then when I tap or click the apply security changes button, it locks them down. Now when I mouse over it, it says administrator must approve photo video. So that's how you can tell what the current setting is and how you can change it for an entire category. If I mouse over here, you can see it's the same setting. But you can also change it for individual setting cells. So if I want to change it for just my infants, if I go to the lock and then left mouse click, now I can make a selection just for that one age category for that one activity. So here I can say administrator must approve event, because when it comes to incident reports, I want to review everything for the infants. So now I've saved that, and when I mouse over, it says administrator must approve event. That means the language and images. So everything about the event. But if I mouse over another one that I haven't changed, it still says photo and video. So now you can change it for everything at once. If you want to have the identical setting for everything, you can come down here where it says modify security controls for all activities. And I'm going to set everything to photo and video. Oops, there we go. And then apply security changes. And once it saves, even if I had changed something previously, now it says administrator must approve photo video, and all of them are the same. So that is how you set approvals. And we'll get to how you approve when we get up here to the blue buttons. For those of you who may have joined late, you can ask questions during this webinar by going to the console and use the Q&A or the chat feature. So continuing on, since we looked at activities, we're going to go back up here to teachers, family members, and children. So we'll take a look at teachers. Again, they all synchronize from Procare. And I want you to note that you can see the rooms to which teachers are assigned on this main page. But let's actually open up a teacher profile and see what they look like. So we're going to look at Mary Anderson. And I want you to note, I cannot edit Mary's name or whether or not her account is enabled. That must be done on the Procare side and let it synchronize overnight. You can change the following. You can change the password. Oh, and notice that there is no email for teachers. It's a best practice to remove the email address from teacher profiles. It tends to create more problems than it solves, and especially if a teacher is also a parent, because the teacher may need that email address for use on their family member account. So let's go further down. Again, you can't see passwords, but you can always reset passwords. You can change the username for a teacher if you need to. This is where you change room assignments for the teacher. So you go to this drop-down menu, and you can check all the rooms. You can have teachers assigned to every room if you wish. Or you can just assign them to specific rooms like I did here. Immediately below the room selection is a question that says limit teacher to assign rooms only. If you check this box, you're saying, yes, I want to limit that teacher to the assigned rooms only. But understand, if you do limit teachers, Mary will only be able to see and log into these 2 rooms. She will not see anything else. So if you want Mary to be a floater, I can uncheck this box, and now, even though she's assigned to infant room 1 and 2, she can sign into or check into any other room in the center, so she can float. So that might be a handy thing to do, just uncheck this box rather than assign teachers to all rooms. Allow teacher to set profile pictures, turns on a camera feature in the teacher application so they can set pictures for children and family members. Can teachers publish portfolio items? Typically, this is not checked. If you check this box, you're saying, yes, they can publish portfolio items, and typically that is for the administrator. And the final box here, allow teacher to send messages to family members. So on that facility page, we turned on the ability for parents to message teachers. This allows them to respond. So we typically see that box checked. And then the final check mark, again from the facility page, who can delete events? If you decide to limit that by teacher profile, this is how you turn it on or off. If you do make changes, you can tap Save there at the bottom. So that is the teacher's page. And again, they synchronize from Procare. They will synchronize as long as they have a workstation or workspace assignment, which is a classroom. They must be actively employed and must have an employment date. So we'll move next to family members. They also synchronize from Procare. My account looks a little odd because there's no email addresses appearing, and that's because we reuse the same family members in multiple accounts, so we only have one email address to use for some of them. So the emails don't synchronize over anymore. But let's take a look here. What you'll see on this page on your account, you'll see the children associated with the family member, whether or not their account is enabled. And if they do have an email, and let me just add Greg's email real quick temporarily. And I'll save that. So what you'll see is the email address appears in the column where it says invalid email question mark. So I know it's a double negative, right? But what you're going to see is a no, a green no indicates that you've got a valid email. So you're looking for a green no. If you see a red yes, then you know you've got a problem email. You also want to see in this column sent welcome email. You're looking for yes. Remember on that home page, it said I have 68 new family members. You can see no for a lot of them, but I do have some that I did send the welcome email to. So that's a quick indication of who's received it and who hasn't. So let's take a look at Greg's profile. So when you click on a family member, first thing, notice where it says View Notices at the far right, right across from where it says Edit Family Member. If you click on View Notices, you can actually see all the notifications a family member has received. This is kind of important, especially if a family member says they're not receiving notifications from you. You can go here and see if they are being sent. But the other thing you can do is confirm whether or not they've been successfully received. So if they say, I'm not getting emails, open an email, and you can see here for Greg, it says processed and then deferred and finally it bounced. Well, I expect that because it's not a real email address. What you will typically see is processed, delivered, and then the number of times the email was opened. So you can confirm all of that. You can see if it was bounced or if it was dropped. This is also true of text messages because they are effectively email. So that is View Notices, and you can see all the notifications they've received. Also note that you cannot edit the first name, last name, and I don't believe you can edit email either. Again, you'll see just a bunch of dots for passwords, but you can always reset a password for a family member. You can also reset their username for them if they're having difficulty. At the same time, family members can see this same information when they log in through the parent portal. So do understand that some of these settings are visible to the parent and they can update them as they wish. They cannot update any of this information either. They can only update their password and their username. They can also change the way in which they want to receive updates. So you can see Greg has email and push notifications. So they can select how they wish to receive notifications. They can also select text message. I want to receive updates with the following frequency. So Greg has opted to receive a notification every time something is recorded for his child, but then he chose only meal items and drop-off information because maybe he's concerned about how his child is eating. So that is, they can also select only send me a summary, and that would be the daily report, just as a bit of clarification. You can see there is a phone number entered for Greg, but again, you cannot edit the phone number here. Anything you need to edit for a family member should be done in Procare. Family members will synchronize only if they are shown as payers. If they're shown as anything other than a payer, they will not synchronize to KidReports. Again, you cannot edit whether or not the account is enabled in KidReports. That happens on the Procare side. But you can update the photograph in KidReports. So that is a family member profile. We'll look next at children. They all synchronize as well. And they will synchronize as long as they have an enrollment date and a classroom assignment. So you can see a quick view at this page. You'll see their birth date and the room to which they're assigned. But let's take a look at Peter Adams because he has both a warning triangle and a red flag on his profile, and I want to show you how to do that. So here's the profile. At the very top, if you want to view a child's daily report for any day, you can go in this box and select a date and print the daily report. So you can do that for any date at any time. There wasn't any information for Peter, but you can also resend the daily report. If the parent says, I never got it, you can resend it. Again, note you cannot edit certain fields. They must be done in Procare. A couple of fields that do not currently sync: additional information and emergency contact information. These must be entered in KidReports directly, either by the administrator, you, or a teacher. The teacher can also enter these two fields. They do not currently synchronize again, and they will not synchronize back into Procare. So for Peter, he has a peanut allergy and a strawberry allergy. So because of that, I set two flags. I set a red flag and a warning triangle because maybe it's a severe allergy. So we want to make sure the teacher sees that in the teacher application before they give him a meal. Again, note you cannot modify whether or not Peter is enrolled or the room to which he is assigned. You can set a profile picture here for Peter as well. KidReports keeps the most recent photo, whether it's from Procare or KidReports. At the very bottom, you'll see the family members that are directly linked to Peter and the last 50 events recorded for Peter. So that is a child profile. So we're going to jump down next to events. So the events page, the child profile showed you the last 50 events. If I want to see all the events for any child, I can just type in their name, and you must do it in lowercase letters, and then search. And you'll get every event recorded for that child. Now, I don't have a lot of events recorded for these children, so there's still fewer than 50, but if there were hundreds, you would see all of them in this view by searching for the child name. So that's how you can view more or all of the child's events without going specifically searching for a specific daily report. So that's events. Final button is Message Center here at the bottom left, and this is exclusively for reading messages you've received or sent. And this is for you logged in as an administrator. You'll see your inbox and your sent. If you want to read a message, just click on the title. You can load more if there's more messages that you're not seeing. So we do have a question. How do you remove a child from populating in KidReports, especially if they are not enrolled and it is designated in Procare? So if they're not enrolled, they have to have a status of anything but enrolled, and that should archive the child in KidReports. But I would almost need to look at the specific situation, and I may actually need to have one of my Procare counterparts check your account if something should be working that way, should be unenrolling them, but they're still enrolled. But generally speaking, as long as they are shown as anything but enrolled, then that should archive them in KidReports. What I can do is follow up with you after this session and we can figure it out for you. Good question. So we're going to move next to the blue buttons. So we're going to go first to send message since we were just looking at message center. This is where you send messages. So the other one, you can just read messages that you've sent or received. This is how you send messages. And we'll begin by alerting teachers. So if you click on the orange button, you can alert all your teachers in a specific room or an individual teacher, put in your message, click send, and it'll go to just those teachers. You can also alert or send a message to all your family members at once. So all the family members in your entire facility by age category, room, or an individual child. And very important, the family members of all absent children. So I have a lot of absent children today, but that's a good feature because some states require that you do contact family members if their child is not in the center that day to confirm that they shouldn't be there because of divorce situations or other dangerous situations. So that would be a reason for using that, family members of all absent children. Subject, maybe it's photo day today. And maybe you've got a message here about photo day, and then you want to put in a link because that's the web page where you can order pictures if you're, from the photographer who's doing your photo day. And then you could attach a permission slip. You could attach maybe an order form if they want to do it by mail for a picture, and maybe instructions for how to behave on photo day. So you can do up to 3 URLs or up to 5 document attachments of any kind. Click send and it'll go to those family members. You might also use this if you've got a URL for a newsletter, meal menus, anything like that, even lesson plans or something if you want to share those with family members. So this might be a handy way of using that. So that is send message. So we're going to go backward here to attendance, and there are 2 selections under attendance. So there's attendance records. This shows you current attendance for the current day is the default day. You can see this is my attendance for today. I have children in 3 rooms. So it'll only show you rooms here if you have them in attendance. Rooms that do not have attendance will not appear. So I've got infant room 1, 2, and my kindergarten room. If you go down below, you can see these are the 4 kiddos who are signed in and the 1 teacher. If there's a pencil icon on the sign in or sign out time when the kiddos are signed out, then you can modify that time. Maybe this kiddo actually came in a little bit earlier than that, and maybe Mary was here much earlier. She was here at 9:30. So you can modify those times after the fact. You can also change dates. I could go back to the 4th if I want, and I could see what my attendance was for that day. And again, it'll show just the rooms for which you had attendance. The other thing you can do is look at your real-time dashboard. Now this is very important. So remember the room ratios I emphasized under the settings age categories. This is one place where they come into play visually. So you can see here, my infant room, it appears as orange. It's because my age or my room ratio for my infant age category is 4:1. So I have 1 teacher, I've got 4 kiddos, I am at my room ratio. So this is a caution. There's a problem in my infant room too because I have 2 kiddos signed in and no teachers. So probably I've got a teacher that just forgot to check in, but I better walk down the hall and check. So this is red because they are out of ratio. So I either have to, it'll appear red if you have no teachers signed into the room or if there are too many children signed into the room or too few teachers. And then finally, if you are in ratio, you're going to be in the green, like my kindergarten room. And you can look very quickly by clicking on the room You can see who's signed in, including the teacher. Teacher appears at right, children appear at left. So that's a quick visual for your classrooms to know if you are within ratio. You can also see room moves here, where the child is located. Can you make more than one ratio for each room? No. What I recommend, if you typically have 2 teachers signed into a room, you could set it up so that you have the ratio when you have 2 teachers in a room. I know some states say that if you have 2 teachers in an infant room, then it can be 1:5. But if you only have 1 teacher in the room, it's 1:4. So it's your choice. I recommend setting it to the lower ratio just to make sure that you have your ratio, but it's really up to you. But you can't do 2 different assignments to it. Otherwise, you'd have a duplicated room, and that would be problematic. That's a great question, though. Thank you for asking that. So on this page, again, the Where Is feature allows you to find children. So let's see where Richie Hansen is. So Richie Hansen, we know he's in this room, but let's see if he's moved around at all today. So I select Richie, and sure enough, Richie was moved around a bit. Signed into infant room 2, moved to infant room 1, went to the playground, and was back to infant room 2. So it'll show you the complete moving for each child. We have another question. Is there a view where a person can check in any student from any class? For example, we do check-in outside during temperature checks. Can the person see all the students? That's a great question. Yes, in the teacher application, I wasn't typically not going to do the teacher app here, but the teacher, as long as they've got a tablet and as long as they've got a Wi-Fi connection, they can check in children in attendance while they're outside. So let's go to the preschool room. They can go to attendance. And again, if they're not synchronizing from Procare, if you're manually signing them in KidReports, just select the child as they're being checked in by the parent. And then you can go here, and those kiddos are signed in. And the teacher can do that directly from a tablet while they're standing outside. Very soon, there's going to be an additional connection, a mobile link for Procare that will synchronize to KidReports. So that's going to simplify it for you a bit. I just don't know the timeline for when that will be definitely syncing from Procare to KidReports. But there's a mobile application that's going to be out there where you can do that on a tablet. What about those who are not in those specific classes? If you're an administrator, you just change the classroom. So if you're the administrator standing outside and you're in KidReports, I just did the preschool room. Maybe I need to check the, let's see, how about toddler's room? So I go to my toddler's room now, and I've got a kiddo to check in here. I'm going to do the same thing just in the toddler's room. And I go back out here, and maybe I've got more for my pre-K room. I'm going to go back to pre-kindergarten, and I'm going to sign some work children in. So that's how you would do that. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So just keep in mind, you can always manually sign children in, but do understand, in the teacher application, if you manually sign a child into KidReports, it will not sync backward into Procare, at least not at this time. So just be very careful about that. It's not going to get their attendance in Procare. So let's go back to the administrative portal. So here we are. I finished with attendance tab and the Where Is feature. We're going to look next at portfolio. So the portfolio, you can see there's folders here for some of these kiddos. You can filter this page by room or by child. By room, you can see the rooms here. If you select child, you can see the children here. I prefer to do it by room, and I'm going to leave it on infant room 1. So these are the folders currently created. A folder is created once you save an event that was saved as a portfolio activity. Portfolio activities are intended for long-term child development observations. So these are not something that appear in the daily report. This is something that's done like at a parent-teacher conference or that kind of interval. So keep that in mind. So these, again, are for the domain of the administrator to approve. You can see for Cindy, she has 1 private record, 1 released record. You can see the same for the other kiddos here. So if you want to see all of the pending items, go to where it says View Portfolio Table at the right. And these are all the items awaiting some kind of review by the administrator. So if I want to approve one of these or save it to the folder, I select it. And if I saved a portfolio, it creates a folder for that child if it isn't already created. If I say Publish to Parent, it'll put it directly in the parent application immediately for the parent. I'm going to save the portfolio for this kiddo. So now that portfolio item is saved for Brenda, and you'll see it appears down here. So that's what the portfolio folder looks like, and that's how you can review and approve. You can also do them all at once if you wish. You just check the box in the blue bar and notice it selects all of them. Then check up here, it'll do all of them. If you want to do 2 or 3 at once, you can do the same thing. Check the box up here, and it'll put it in those folders, and those 2 items will disappear. So that's how you use the portfolio tab. Already showed you send message, let's go to approvals. This is a little bit different. So remember on the activities page, I set everything for photo and video approval only. So here, notice that signatures are saved as images or media, a photo. And then I've got other photos that I need to approve. I don't have any videos here at the moment, but this is for all my media items. Again, I can select all of them from the blue bar at the top, and I can approve all at once, or I can do one at a time. You can also delete it if it doesn't belong there for some reason. So that is for my media queue, and you have a separate one for events. So let's say you do want to approve everything, including the language. You would see them here, and then you would go through and approve them individually or as all together, however you want to do that. We wouldn't be KidReports without reports, so we're going to look at search reports. From this page, you can run reports on just about anything you need in your account. So from here, you can filter by the entire facility, age category, room, or individual child. If you select anything other than entire facility, you'll be able to select the detail. I'm going to select entire facility, and here it defaults to all events, so anything recorded for that day. But notice there are other reports you can run. For example, teacher check-in times. If I want to see all my teacher check-ins for the past week, I can do that. I can search and it'll open up in a browser and I can see check-in and check-out times, or I can export to Excel. You can also look at a specific activity type. So you've got all these reports that you can run, but I can go to a specific activity type and notice it gives me a secondary menu, and this matches exactly what appears on my activities page. So if you customize your activities and you add a new activity, like I added Outdoor Explorer, I could run a report on it. Common requests are to run incident reports. So you go to a specific activity type, incident report. I only want things with an image, and I want everything in the last 2 weeks that has an image. I search, and I get that incident report. Notice the signatures are saved, and notice I've got a signature by the teacher, the administrator, and the parent. So I can get signatures from everybody. Pardon me. So you've got a lot of different reports you can run. I really recommend you go out here and experiment a little bit, see which ones you really want to look at, which ones work best for you. You can even do legacy attendance reports, things like that. So there's a lot of great information that you can run reports on. Final button here is Kid Planner. Kid Planner is a way of pre-planning activities in the classrooms. So basically, what you do on your activities page will appear here as a selection, as an available selection. So let's demonstrate. We're going to go to the kindergarten room. So you select the room you're planning for. Make sure you're on plan. And we're going to fix this, but notice my X to close is really close to my plus button to add. So you got to make sure that X isn't darkened in. Sorry about that. We're going to fix that soon. But now I can select the activity. So let's say I want to plan an activity for my kindergartners. They are coloring and drawing. Notice you can add age state standards as well, if you wish. You can select additional rooms. Maybe I want to plan for additional rooms like my preschool room. But do understand, if you want to plan for the entire center or for additional rooms, you must select it here. You cannot select them later. This is the only place where you're going to be able to select additional rooms. So I select the details here. I can add notes about what I want them to do there, maybe a little bit of a lesson plan paragraph, and then save the plan. It'll ask you to confirm by clicking OK, and my activity is now saved for today. So you can see it defaults to today's date. So what you can do now, because right now the plan is only visible to you and your teachers, you can print this if you want, and you can share it as a PDF with parents. You do that by clicking through the print function up here and just follow the prompts to print. You have 4 buttons that are created once you create an event. The first is information, what's in it. The second button allows you to copy the event to future dates. So I could copy it to tomorrow or some other date in the future, maybe next week on Wednesday, or I could do a date range. I can select a beginning and an end date, and then click OK, and it'll plan it out for me. And you can see it's now copied out, and it'll be the identical plan. The pencil icon allows you to edit, but notice you cannot select rooms. You can only edit the detail. So maybe if I wanted to add a state standard here, I could. So I could add a state standard. They're doing art. We're going to say creative arts and expressions. We're going to say art, and I'm just going to select a couple of these at random. And then I save that, and that's going to be added when I save plan. So now the teacher will see the state standards, and they can make observations on each state standard for each child. So that is how you create a KID plan. Again, days, weeks, or even months in advance. Just advance the date by using the arrows, and you can plan it. So to close it, just click this X, and that will get you out of KID Planner. So just a couple of other quick things to show you in the black bar at the top. View Edit is quick access to the most commonly used things in KidReports. Utilities, 2 important things here. The first is change teacher passwords. So I know I told you can change the password for anyone individually on their individual profile. This is where you can change passwords for all the teachers in your facility. And this is only your teachers. So you can do all your teachers to an assigned room or a specific teacher. Password just needs to be 8 characters, including a number, and then save. And that'll change it for your teachers. Now this next thing is really important. KidReports normally will synchronize from Procare overnight. So Procare to KidReports, overnight synchronization. But you can manually synchronize your account every 4 hours if you need to. So let's say you went through and made a lot of changes in your Procare account for family members and children. You can go up here to Utilities, go to Import, and from Import, select Procare Cloud Sync. That'll show you a page like this. Click on the button that says Sync PC Cloud Now. I'm not going to do it just yet, but the most recent synchronization appears at the bottom. You'll see a green check mark when it's complete so that you know that the synchronization is completed. Once it's complete, you can look at the details for that synchronization. So you can see everything that's synchronized over. So again, that path is Utilities, Import, Procare Cloud Sync. Click the button that says Sync PC Cloud Now. It'll ask you to wait a moment. Tells you the job is running. Refresh that. And when it completes, it'll tell you the job is complete. And it says Procare Full Sync allowed every 4 hours. And it tells you the time you can next run it. So you can do that once every 4 hours. That's a really important feature for you. I've already shown you earlier, but you can launch the teacher application directly from your administrative portal if you want to see what's going on in your classroom. So let me close these up here. But all you have to do is click on Mobile App, and it opens up the teacher application. So that's pretty handy if you want to see what's going on in the teacher application, see what activities are recorded for children, that sort of thing. And then finally, at the far upper right, you can see your name up there. You can log out from there if you wish. And then you can switch between regular view and your archive view. So if you happen to be looking at family members and you're saying, why am I only seeing people who are no longer here? Well, you're probably in archive view, and it's a big orange button at the upper right. Just switch to regular view and everything will be correct. So that's everything I wanted to show you. Are there any questions out there that I didn't get to? I didn't see anything come through Q&A. I don't see any others in chat, and I don't see any raised hands at this time. I did record this session for any of you that want, if you missed the beginning of it, for example, but I'll send it to everyone who registered if you want to share it out to anyone who missed it. All right, I'll give you another 20 seconds. I don't see any questions coming through. When do you get your login? First of all, when you get your login, so when you are onboarded into KidReports, so you'll be on a call with someone at Procare, they will onboard your account. Once you're onboarded, the person whose email address is the default person set up as the school director, they will receive an email that has all the login information. If you haven't gotten that and you believe you are that person, I will follow up with you after this session and I'll figure out what your login is, or even if you have been onboarded yet. You'd know if you've been onboarded because I think it's a three-step, three-phone call process where someone from Procare takes you right through it. So that is how you get your logins. Kenna, you don't need to stay on. I will just follow up via email afterward because I don't want to keep this webinar open too long. Can you possibly set up rooms by just the room name and not by individual teacher? Of course, you can set up room names any way you want in Procare. If you're a KidReports standalone account, you can set them up directly in KidReports, but I don't think we have very many of those anymore. But yeah, it's whatever you set up in Procare is the room name. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'm not understanding that question, Erica. Concerning the unenrolled students still showing, yep, I'll follow up with you afterward. What is the cost to use KidReports? I don't remember the cost for that because I'm not an account manager. Unfortunately, I don't have the current cost for anything. The account manager would be able to tell you. I would rather have them contact you than give you any incorrect information here, just because that's not part of what I normally do. So I apologize for that. But I will, I'll grab your email off of the registration, Kevin, and I'll make sure that we get that information to you, either from a phone call from an account manager or email. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming through. And I think I answered all that I could answer at this time. All right, and we are just a minute over the scheduled time. I think we're going to call it there. I will save this recording for everyone, and I'll send it to everyone who registered again so that you can share that out with others that didn't get an opportunity to attend. I thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it, and hope you'll all stay healthy.